Gordon. Sheep. Oh. Had to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 2 o'clock, so I would like to call the June the 17th Council Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Our first order of business is approval of minutes of May the 20th Committee of the Whole meeting. Were there any errors, or omissions? Oh, my apologies. My apologies. The experienced people in the room are teaching me. So I would like to acknowledge that the City of Fort Saskatchewan is located on Treaty 6 territory and Métis Nation of Alberta District 11. We recognize that we stand upon the land that carries the footsteps of many Indigenous peoples, including the Neowak, the Dene, the Blackfoot, Saulteaux, Nakota Sioux, and the Métis. The City honors the first peoples of this land, is committed to fostering reconciliation through relationship building, knowledge gathering, and education. And some housekeeping. In the event that there is an emergency, we would ask that you exit the main entrance, proceed right, and follow the staff, any of the ones sitting in the front. And the muster point is at the extreme far side of the parking lot. So that's where we would meet up in the event of an emergency. So that is what I have. So back to the agenda. So the first item of business is approval of the minutes.
This meeting is being transcribed and summarized.
Committee of the Whole meeting on May the 20th. So were there any errors, omissions? Okay. So would you like to make the motion? Okay. Okay. So, Councillor Abatoye.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to make the motion that Council approves the minutes of the May 20th Committee of the Whole meeting minutes as presented and circulated.
Okay. I didn't hear that there were any errors or omissions, so I would put the motion on the floor and please cast your vote. And that is carried unanimously. I would also note that Councillor Nguyen is not going to be in attendance at the public portion of today's meeting, and Mayor Ketcher is joining us virtually. She's out of the office today, but she's going to be attending virtually, so she's with us. So this is a period of time in our meeting where we have the opportunity for delegations or people that wish to speak on any item that is on the agenda today. We have 3 public items, and I am not sure if I see anybody that wishes to do that, but if so, would you please identify yourself, come up, and we will give you 5 minutes to speak on any of those items. If you're here to present on those items, then we will call those items up in due course. So seeing no delegations, then I will proceed to the first item of business on our committee meeting today, and that's the Central Alberta Regional Victim Servicing Society update. And Lauren Reed, Chief Executive Officer of CRVSS, is in attendance. So please come and make yourself comfortable at the lectern. Press the button and you will have some sound.
Hello. Did I do that right? Yes.
You did it. Thank you very much.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I am happy to be here. Finally close to home for a council delegation. I am here to talk about CARVS. I say CARVS because the whole thing is just so long. So from here on out, I will say CARVS. Just here to introduce us and introduce myself. I am Lauren Reed, the CEO of our organization. I also have Gloria with me. She's just behind me. Give a wave. And she's our community and cultural liaison for our organization. So we are the newly formed Victim Services coming out of your local RCMP detachment in Fort Saskatchewan. We've been in operation since October 1st. Previously, I worked for the city of Fort Saskatchewan, and before that, I was heavily involved in victim services. So I've done urban, rural, inner city. I've been on the board. I've been an advocate. Almost 15 years now, I've been involved in victim services in some fashion. So I came back to that. Had to leave the city, which was hard, but I still get to come visit, which is nice. Who are we? We're victim services. We're the same victim services that's been in Fort Saskatchewan. It's giving the same services for over 30 years. We're just a bigger model now. So the province did decide to go with the regional model, creating 4 sort of super organizations to run the victim services, particularly the police-based, particularly with the RCMP detachments. Our detachment area is the CAD, the Central Alberta District. So we have 20 different detachments in our area, Fort Saskatchewan detachment area being one. But we are still victim services. We are here to provide information, referrals, and support to victims of crime and tragic circumstances. And we are based out of all of the RCMP detachments. The organization got a little bit bigger. So we have a central support staff now, such as finance, HR, cultural supports, and then we have a team of navigators. This sort of gives an overview so you can sort of see how we are structured and where those people are. And you can see in this list we have 2 full-time frontline service navigators in Fort Saskatchewan. We did have an update because one of them went off to be an EPS officer recently, so this list hasn't been updated, but we have Laura Lee, who is from Fort Saskatchewan, and we now have Gabby, who is our new navigator, who we took from Parkland. So they are both full-time, working out of the detachment. This is our area, just as a visual. So we go from Fort Saskatchewan, Morinville, all the way over to Rocky Mountain House, all the way back over to Stettler, down to Innisfail. In relation to the other districts, we're the smallest in area, but almost the highest in population. Sometimes South gives us a run for that. But we're lucky in that sense because we are close and our navigators are able to support each other. We don't have such a big geographic area. So again, we've got Southern Victim Services, Eastern and Western, and then Central in the middle there. We went through the transition over the summer. It was a fast transition, and we were operational all units by October 1st. We did start a little bit early in Fort Saskatchewan just to cover some gaps over the summer, but essentially we did our huge recruitment run, structured, wrote all of the policies, and got up and running in just a few months. We were really lucky. We were able to retain over 87% of existing victim services staff in all of our detachment areas. So that was pretty great. It's not the same for all the regions, but for Central we were able to. So again, you guys, all of our detachments were able to retain the local supports and knowledge. Fort Saskatchewan, we did offer the jobs, but one of our Erin, who you would have known from before, she did end up moving, so she wasn't able to stay on. So you do have fresh faces, but they are experienced in victim services, which is great. And again, we're doing support, referrals, information. We're doing timely and equitable access to those services across the region, across the province. We're prioritizing services based on the need and the crisis situations. And that's including vulnerable people as well and tragic circumstances. So we are getting most of our referrals from the RCMP, but we can take referrals from individuals themselves, organizations, pretty much from anywhere. I've even gotten some from council members over the last few months. And we think about victims as direct victims and indirect victims. Direct victims are the ones that a crime has happened to them. Something has happened to them. They're likely going to be subpoenaed for court. They're going to need that support. Indirect victims, we also provide supports to. Those are people that maybe have been a witness to a crime, or a family member or a friend of somebody who has been a victim, or somebody who has experienced a tragic circumstance. We always say no wrong door. If we received a referral, we are going to take it and we are going to find the either appropriate supports, or we're going to do our best with them. So when people are always asking, oh, I'm not sure if I should call you, always call there's a very good chance that we're going to be able to help. And if we can't, we promise to find somebody who can. And we are doing that through our community partnerships and our relationships. We work quite a bit with FCSS, and I was just meeting with Families First ED, and we have a great relationship with them, particularly around their family violence prevention program. What do you do? What do we do when someone calls us? They need help. What is victim services? I get asked that all the time. What exactly do the navigators do in the detachments? The first thing they're doing is that initial navigation. It is a lot of crisis assistance, crisis assessments, information, informing people of their rights. Victims of crime don't always understand what rights they have and what access to services and information that they should be getting. They often need help with applications to things, forms, paperwork, and liaising with other organizations. The bread and butter of what we do, though, is the court navigation or criminal justice navigation. Many cases that we're dealing with victims of crime are taking up to 2 years in court. This isn't a one-and-done service. We are often working with people for up to 2 years. And those things include liaising with the Crown prosecutors, liaising with the RCMP, moving them through the justice system, the forms, the paperwork, the court dates, attending court for them so they don't need to, and making sure that they have all of the updates of all of the different outcomes that can happen. Then obviously trial prep, attending court with them, and then debriefing and supports afterwards. The last piece of the program is our crisis response, which is still active. We do have a 24-hour phone number that the RCMP can call victim services and reach us anytime, where they can ask for assistance or help or allow us to help them triage the situation. So those are things like suspicious deaths, home invasions, domestic violence, sexual assault, but mostly they are the next of kin death notifications. So we still are assisting across our region with those call-outs. This is where I sort of speak to how to reach us. Every unit is still its own unit. So Fort Saskatchewan has 2 dedicated navigators. They have their own phone number, email, and anybody can reach them at any time. As much as we've been regionalized, we are still very local, and the supports are given at the local level. We are also governed by a board of directors as a not-for-profit society, and our board is made up of board members from across the region. One of our board members is from Fort Saskatchewan and sat on the previous Victim Services Board. So we do have a lot of local roots, and we're really dedicated to keeping it that way. We also still have our volunteer advocate program, which is a long-standing program in Alberta for victim services. So we do have a team of volunteer advocates that assist with crisis call-outs and court support when needed. We do still have an active advocate program in Fort Saskatchewan, but we'd like to pretty much double it at this point. So the next time you'll see me around will be regarding recruiting new victim services advocates from the area, so then we can expand that program. But that is your victim services in Fort Saskatchewan in a nutshell. That's the 10-minute version.
Lauren, thank you very much. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions, so I open the floor to council and any questions you might have of Lauren. Councillor Blizzard.
Sure, I'll start off. Nice presentation, good information. Is this a nonprofit or is this government funded? Can people donate?
Yeah, we are a not-for-profit organization. We are solely funded right now by the government of Alberta. Their commitment was that there'll be sustainable programming available. So their commitment to us is that we will have adequate funding throughout this transition and as we go into full operations in the next year. We do take, we can receive donations, but we are not fundraising or soliciting for them. And any of those donations would go straight to direct client needs, such as water bottles, blankets, or sort of basic necessities that might come up.
Okay, thank you very much, and good work that you do.
Thank you.
Councillor Abatoye.
Thank you for your presentation, Ms. Reid. My first question is, so now we have 2 members that are serving the Fort Saskatchewan area. Before this organization was founded, how many did we have?
It had fluctuated over the years. Usually 1.5 to 2 have been the numbers that that we use to staff each area were a direct relation to what was already there. So it was either the
So
same
there was
or
no
more.
reduction or anything like that in
None,
services? Okay,
no.
perfect. Thank you. You answered my question about funding. My second question is just because I know that I'm looking for the best way to say it. There's a lot of cultural people that are disproportionately represented in the criminal services system, right? What kind of effort do you have to deal or handle with those types of groups?
Yeah,
of people?
definitely. This was one of the big focuses for us as CARVs as we got going, and making it a priority, especially to fill our cultural and community liaison position, which I've got Gloria here to do. So a lot of her work right now is connecting with those groups in our communities and really learning right now what is needed and finding those connections of the right people in each of the communities, whether it's Indigenous or any of our groups. And asking them what they're looking for and how to support them is our big push right now, is to get connected and understanding those needs. Also, that's where we're looking for advocates as well. We're particularly seeking out advocates in some of those groups to volunteer with us to strengthen our response and the way that we can help our victims.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Well, I couldn't think of a better person to serve this role. So congratulations to you and well done. Thank you.
And the next up is Councillor Macon.
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation, Lauren. It's always really nice to see you. Just so I get a better idea of the work that you do, when you talk about the next of kin call out, is that one of your advocates actually going out with the RCMP to do those notifications and to provide support directly?
Yeah, exactly. It can look like different things depending on what there's two things to think of. One is the victim is asking for. So sometimes they do want somebody alongside, to come and answer questions and be there. So we do have our navigators as well as the advocates that can be called out in person to those times. Sometimes it's a phone call to see if they have any questions, and oftentimes it's follow-up as well. So even just that next day when the dust has settled, now what do we do? How do we get a hold of the medical examiner? Things like that. That's a lot of where the work seems to happen is the afterwards, but we are actively going to call outs in Fort Saskatchewan in the moment as well.
And the 24-hour service that you mentioned, is that more for, like say it's 3 a.m, is that more for referral services, like RCMP are calling you out, or can anybody call because they know of somebody who is a victim and needs the support at that time?
Yeah, it is. Only the RCMP can call us out 24-hour because we do need to be on scene with them. So that's one of the sort of safety protocols. Okay. So we are being called out for them, by them. Yeah. With them, if you will. And again, if it's something that we can assist in the next day in a safe manner, we will as well. But next of kin, usually we'd be going with them to deliver the bad news and just be there to help, to be that emotional support.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Of course.
Well, it doesn't look like there are any more questions. So Lauren and Lori, thank you very much for attending council today and giving us that update on your organization and the good work that you're doing in the community. It's obviously a very valued service. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So the next item of business is a Truth and Reconciliation update. Brad Babiak presenting. Welcome, Brad. And you are accompanied by?
Taylor.
Taylor. Thank you. Welcome, Taylor.
So good afternoon, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Brad Babiak. I'm the Director of Culture and Recreation Services. I'm joined today up front by Taylor Barry Bobray, Supervisor of the Fort Heritage Precinct. And in the audience as well is Amber Grant, the Coordinator for Social Planning for the city. The city of Fort Saskatchewan is located here on Treaty 6 territory. And while it does not share a direct boundary with the First Nation or Métis communities, it is home to many Indigenous residents. As the order of government closest to the public, the Truth and Reconciliation's call to action note that municipalities have both the opportunity and ability to take meaningful action to address the legacy of residential schools and advance reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous residents and neighbors. An example of this is the call to action 57 that calls for training for municipal staff on Indigenous history, intercultural competency, anti-racism, and a legacy of residential schools. Additional examples of municipal-related calls to action are on page 1 of the council report. To guide the city in this work, in 2021, council directed administration to develop a Truth and Reconciliation Action Plan in consultation with Indigenous stakeholders, resulting in a multi-year plan funded initially through Budget 2022. This is Appendix A of the council report. From the start, it was considered essential to approach this work collaboratively with Indigenous residents and neighbors, guided by the pace and direction of those relationships. During the 2025 operational budget deliberations, council requested a progress report of the status of the Truth and Reconciliation Initiative status and future plans by the end of Q2 of 2025. Areas of focus first identified in the action plan to guide this work are listed on this slide. Overall progress has been made in 6 of the 8 areas of focus. Appendix B of the council report provides a high-level summary of work stemming from the multi-year action plan and areas of focus, while Appendix C provides further details on events, programming, and training in chronological order. There are 3 action areas that have significant changes from what was initially proposed. Regionally specific online curriculum was paused due to the availability of existing high-quality offerings available in the region already. This met the intended educational outcomes that were desired. The move to the existing courses versus development of new ones is one of the main drivers for the decrease in the recent budget requests. Another area that had significant changes was online staff education. This moved from strictly an online training model to more diverse and engaging suite of in-person workshops, experiential learning opportunities, and cultural sessions. The third area that had significant changes was related to community development. The Truth and Reconciliation portfolio was initially adopted by an existing FTE, which was the supervisor of Fort Heritage Precinct, for years 1 and 2, where 50% of the FTE was dedicated to this work. And that was to then move to 25% of the position moving forward. In 2025, the city transitioned from having 1 lead for Truth and Reconciliation work to it being supported by 2 positions. The social planning coordinator from Family Community Social Services is now engaged in this work, and it continues to live with the supervisor of the Fort Heritage Precinct. This shift reflects the scope and complexity of the work and broader administrative goal of embedding reconciliation across the organization and reduces the impact of potential staff turnover for long-term relationship building. Furthermore, Truth and Reconciliation work has been increasingly shared through the city's administration, as it became more of a lens of the work of the city even during normal operations. It involves coordination and contributions from teams including Public Works, Fleet Facilities Engineering, Financial Services, Planning and Development, Corporate Communications, Family, Community and Social Services, and of course, Culture and Recreation Services. There's one action area of focus that progress has not been made, and that's the incorporation of Indigenous names. This remains a future focus or a future area of action, but requires further engagement, cultural consultation, and co-development with Indigenous partners. The city's 2025 initiatives follow a community approach that includes supporting Indigenous-led initiatives through funding, staff support, and in-kind contributions. As previously mentioned, upcoming events for this year are in Appendix C and fall under these 4 areas listed on the slide. City events, of which an example is Indigenous Peoples Day, where the city will host a family-friendly daytime event in partnership with local Indigenous and Métis residents. The celebration will honor Indigenous history, heritage, and resilience through music, food, and cultural programming. Examples of programming include, in August, the city will offer programs that highlight our shared responsibilities as treaty partners in the lead up to Treaty 6 Day. Examples of staff training which will be held this fall, is the delivery of experiential training opportunities for staff, supporting deeper understanding and engagement with Indigenous histories, cultures, and perspectives. And a few examples of partnership are the Witness Blanket Exhibition that is now on display at the Fort Heritage Precinct in the courthouse throughout June, in partnership with the Elk Island Public Schools. The Witness Blanket is a powerful installation made from items reclaimed from residential schools and related sites. It honors survivors and invites reflection on Canada's history. This marks the first time the exhibit has been in the Edmonton area since 2017. There is also a collaboration with local Indigenous artist, Ellie Langer, to launch a community-driven educational initiative, Healing Hands of Reconciliation, that is going to be unfolding over the next 4 months. This will culminate in September with the city hosting a community summer or ceremony to raise this commitment to the 94 calls of action. The initiative invites residents to reflect, learn, and commit to ongoing truth and reconciliation efforts. And finally, in terms of work of the Truth and Reconciliation in the coming years, administration proposes to keep a relationship-first approach. This means administration will continue our engagement and collaborations with local Indigenous residents, community groups, knowledge keepers, and educators to continue to look for partnerships and opportunities to support others in helping move these action items forward and address gaps as necessary, using the areas of focus as a guide. With that, I'll open up for any questions council may have.
Brad, thanks very much for your presentation. It was great to see all the work that's been taking place in the last little while. When the Witness Blanket first came to town, I had the opportunity to attend. The mayor was otherwise engaged that day, so I attended as deputy mayor. It was really quite an interesting exposition, and anybody that gets a chance to go see it, and certainly the school children that have been engaged, I think that's definitely a valuable learning opportunity for our school-age children. So thank you very much. I would open the floor to questions, and we have Councillor Abatoye.
No, I was the last. The first was Councillor Makin.
Okay. The top. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Makin, my apologies.
Not a problem. Thank you for this report. It was is exactly what I was looking for, to see what we have done and where we are going. So I really appreciated all the work that went into that. One of the things that I kind of noted as I was reading through it is, do we do any work on this with other municipalities? Do we collaborate with anyone? Is there the opportunity? Because it just feels like all municipalities must be trying to figure out what the best path forward is.
That's very correct. We're working as a regional working group with groups in Edmonton as well as surrounding area. We're meeting on a quarterly basis, and we do have the opportunity, as both Amber and I settle in our footings with this new co-lead initiative. We really do hope to expand our programming to include places like Strathcona County, where there's a lot of overlap in our histories. So yeah, we're really looking forward to regional collaboration.
So is that the intent then of that group, is to help kind of establish best practice, what's working, what's not? Okay.
Yeah, so best practices, as well as sharing calendar of events, as well as we'll be bringing in different teachings. We'll be doing some professional development as Indigenous liaisons of sorts. So yeah, it's a very, at this point, it's an emerging working group, but I think that I think it could lead to really great synergies within Edmonton and the surrounding area.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Councillor Abatoye.
The mayor was second. The mayor was second. I can go ahead if you want.
Okay, we'll have the mayor next. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Harris. You're doing a great job. So the question that I have really comes to, I'm going to talk about Indigenous Days. So last year, the city of Fort Saskatchewan had our Indigenous Days little bit later in the day, but the multicultural had theirs earlier in the day. So people were really confused about which Indigenous days do they go to? Is there some way we can work with the multicultural? Because again, this year we're having ours on the Saturday and they're having theirs on the Sunday. So it just feels like it's disjointed again. That's question one.
Through the chair. Yes, I mean, looking to engage and share ideas is definitely something we want to really work towards. And I think that's something we'll keep an eye on and trying to be more proactive, as in some cases plans get developed very early and so it's hard to switch course. While there is potentially that overlap, as you mentioned, I would also suggest it could potentially be an opportunity. That way, if someone misses one opportunity, there is another available. But again, you're absolutely right. We should try and focus and at least create as much clarity as we can for the community on these events and where and how they're hosted and to what they might look like in terms of any differences or overlap.
Okay. It's just, it feels like it's just very disjointed with them. And I don't know whether they're willing to work with us or not. And I apologize if my mic isn't as clear as it should be, but it's right here. So, second question that I have with your budgets, they range from 40,000, 79,000, 39, 29, and 29. Do we really feel that we need to maintain these, budgets at this level? We don't give any other user group or cultural group that type of funding. So I guess I just question that.
Through the chair, this is something obviously that's up to council's discretion as we go through the budget process each year to see what level of support they're willing to make. To your point, one of the distinctions I guess I would just raise with this work of truth and reconciliation is it is a little different from maybe working with some of our other community groups in the fact that part of this work is to actually recognize where Canadian organizations, whether federal, provincial, RCMP or others, have had an impact in the Indigenous peoples in a way that other cultural groups may not have been impacted. So that's not to say they're any more or less important, but there is a different relationship with the treaties and the work of trying to reconcile and move forward from residential schools that is beyond just awareness and celebration of culture or trying to be inclusive. So there is a little extra work I think needed there. Again, to the exact budget, we feel that the work we've done has been really well received by the community, but if there's opportunities that you'd like us to look at to support this work differently, that's something that we do continue to do and look for different opportunities. So even though the money's been relatively stable, we have done, as you look and see in the appendixes, quite a few different types of initiatives. So I think the ongoing funding just also recognizes a commitment to keeping this work going versus maybe trying to give a grant out to someone, which may or may not be successful from year to year.
Okay, and thank you. I appreciate that. I just want to say I think you're doing an amazing job, and I think using Ellie LaGranger and her daughter Stacy from the Dreamcatchers Gallery, I think they really help with the Indigenous culture in our community. So just thank you for the work that you're doing with them. I think this hands and having the TP that will go up will go a long way. So thank you. I'm good. Deputy Mayor Harris, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Abatoye.
I think you got to go right on the microphone.
Good.
Thank you. Technology.
It's all in the touch.
Thank you very much for your response. I think your response was really marvelous, and I really agree with the things that you just said. My question on that note, is there a plan to move from events-based reconciliation efforts to embedded systemic efforts or changes like hiring and procurement when it comes to Indigenous people?
Through the chair, to Councillor Abatoye, thank you for your question. I think we've been trying to move towards that way. Some of this obviously isn't as transparent in terms of government process or city processes, you may see. But one of the things that we have done internally, although it was to help support events, ironically, was to look at an honorarium procedure, for lack of a better word. So instead of treating Indigenous knowledge keepers or artists as vendors, which is typically what our accounting area would like to see, we worked to come up with a way that to meet the needs that we had for requirements, but to treat these knowledge keepers. One of the reasons for the change in a little bit back is when these knowledge keepers come and share information with us, it's typically considered to be a gift from them to others. And so part of the honorarium process is to give a gift back and not to pay for a service. So that looks a little different in terms of this is often seen, they recognize this through cash gifts rather than giving us an invoice and then we pay them back later. And this just isn't a city practice. This is something post-secondary institutes and others who kind of follow these protocols go through. And that was one of the things we actually worked on very early on, I think in 2022, is to work with our finance department to come up with a practice that kind of does that. It doesn't go directly to your point of procurement, but it is an internal practice that we've looked to change. And sorry, you had mentioned another example.
No, saying things like hiring, procurement policies, just things that are really systemic rather than just events-based.
Yeah, and so some of the other practices we have internally is, there's a couple of different examples throughout. So our fleet facilities and engineering department has actually worked with us that any city facility can be smudged in now without having to go proactively to ask permission or whatever. It's all been considered. And so those are, again, another thing that wouldn't be necessarily as obvious as we went to one of those. But in terms of procurement and those things, haven't gone to that extent yet.
That's that point. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your response. And my second question is around the training programs. I remember during COVID attending a few of those online trainings around truth and reconciliation. And my question around that is, did we track that, like attendance for staff and council? And is there also a consideration for that to be, and maybe it's included in the onboarding process for new staff and probably even orientation for council? Is there a plan for that?
Yes, through your chair to Councillor Abertoy. Yeah, there are plans, and that's for additional training coming up in September. But one of the reasons we moved, I think it was in 2024 now, with an ongoing budget request, is to build in the budget to allow that so that we can bring back and do basically sometimes the same training when we have new staff members come. Okay. And that could be similar to council or any other person who works in the city, that they're recognizing this isn't a one and done scenario, and that as the city grows and even adds new staff, we have the ability to continue that training. Okay.
So just the first part of my question about the metrics from the previous training, what did that look like in terms of attendance?
Yeah, through the chair. Yes, we do track those. I don't have those numbers immediately in front of me. We just kind of have the number of training or the different training we've done, but we could look to those numbers and get back to you.
Appreciate you. Thank you. I thank you as well.
Thank you. Councillor Blizzard.
Very good information. Thanks for bringing it all forward. It looks like we're making some progress in this area. I just came across something that said witness blanket exhibition, and it's free on Saturdays. So can you talk a little bit about that? And maybe we can somehow encourage, if there was any papers or something that are listening, to encourage people to come out to that.
Yeah, so we were super fortunate to have a partnership with Elk Island Public Schools to bring in the exhibition. And from Monday to Friday, it's been offered to students. But for the last 2 Saturdays, as well as this upcoming Saturday, we're offering free admission to our 1909 courthouse, where the exhibition is currently situated. Along with the 21st, which is this Saturday for National Indigenous Peoples Day. We are also smudging with Elder Gloria, as well as we are going to be honored to be listening to some of her stories and her teachings as well in the courthouse. So I encourage every person, every resident from here and also beyond to come in and witness the blanket and to understand the stories and the complexities that exist within our everyday life.
Very good. One thing with the smudging, I was at one, I think at Families First, and the fire alarm went off. So just if you're doing that maybe outside, or I don't know how I don't think you can turn the fire alarms off, but
So something that Brad noted is we've been working with our facilities group to identify spaces within Fort Saskatchewan that Indigenous and non-Indigenous people are free to smudge. Our museum buildings are actually categorized as a non-concern. So it's just one step that facility services is also taking in indigenizing spaces.
Thank you.
Well, it doesn't look like we've got any more questions, so thank you very much for that presentation. It's great to get an update on those activities because they are so culturally important to our community. So thank you very much. So the next item of business is Enterprise Resource Planning ERP update, and I believe Ms. Bugea will be making the presentation with Mr. Harder. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Sandy Bugea. I'm the General Manager for Corporate Services, and I'm very pleased to provide this update on the city's Enterprise Resource Planning, or ERP modernization project. By way of general introduction, an ERP system refers to the core software that organizations use to manage and conduct their day-to-day business activities, especially the business related to financial and human resource functions. More importantly, ERP systems are the main repository of financial and resident data used to support the city's decision-making. This slide provides a brief overview of the project history. The city's current ERP system, Microsoft Dynamics GP, currently supports our critical business functions, including accounting, payroll, utility billing, and financial reporting. However, this system is nearing its end of life cycle, and there is now a need to address the next system to replace it. The city has diligently been planning for this transition. In 2023, we conducted a third-party review of our current state and documented existing gaps in our current system, as well as identified options for addressing the city's future needs. This review highlighted various actions that could be undertaken to ensure that the city is in good shape to take on an ERP system replacement. As part of the 2025 budget, Council approved funding to support what we are calling the pre-work for this project. Stepping back a little bit and looking at the ERP project in terms of phases, we are in the first phase of work, which is focused on the preparation. The next phase will involve going to market through the RFP process to acquire a new system. Once a new system has been selected, we will be ready to move into the implementation phase, which will have likely the most impact to the organization as we update and transition our current processes. One of our goals in this project is to ensure a thoughtful approach to change management, which includes proactive communication and engagement with impacted staff and departments, and tailored support and training on the new system. The final phase of the project is maintenance, and we expect to make that shift in late 2028. But in reality, maintenance of the new system will become part of our ongoing operations as soon as we're done with implementation. This slide highlights the work we have done to date. Again, these actions were identified in that 2023 review and have continued to be refined as we move through the work. Much of the work that you see on the screen is really about refining and documenting ERP system needs, confirming the best sequence for implementing ERP functions, reviewing what has changed in the ERP landscape, identifying resources for the next phases of the project, and establishing the governance framework for this transition. Other key areas of focus include data cleanup, process mapping and improvement, and documenting the expected interdependencies between the city's various software systems. In terms of the next touch point with Council for this project, administration will include a budget recommendation to support the next phase of the ERP transition as part of the 2026 budget process. Before I close and turn it over to the chair for questions, I'm going to take a moment to acknowledge the work of the ERP Governance Committee thus far. The committee includes the Director of IT, Trevor, Director of Communications, Jesse, Director of People Services, Bettina, as well as our CFO, Jeremy, our budget manager, and our accounting manager, Shannon and Clayton, respectively. Some of these members are here today, and we are now happy to take any questions from the committee on the project.
I'll start off. Just when we move into an ERP system and we're doing that acquisition, how many vendors are actually offering, the types of software that ultimately would meet our needs going forward? Is there one primary or 6 or 8, or how many do we have to pick and choose from ultimately that we will put our RFP out to and look for a response?
Thank you for the question. There is a competitive market out there. One of the things we've observed is that since the time we started the review in 2023, there have been some shifts in the market, but there's probably between 4 and 6 dominant players that would be looking at the right scope of ERP system that the city would potentially be interested in. So there is a good range of options available for the city to explore.
And second question, so ultimately in any new implementation, software, other systems like that, change management is so crucial. So ultimately we have a well-documented change management process, and all of our major players in this exercise have good experience in change management, would you say?
I would say that's something we've been working on as part of the governance committee that is overseeing this project. So we are sort of documenting the risks of not having the change management and identifying how we could mitigate those risks. We're also investing time and energy into developing a really robust resourcing plan. One of the points of failure with this type of project is not resourcing it efficiently so that it becomes a corner of the desk. So I think the resourcing and the change management go hand in hand. Those issues have been top of mind for the governance committee, and it is something that we are turning our minds to.
That's good to hear. And as long as we have good executive sponsorship on this, then ultimately I think you're moving in the right direction. So thank you. Councillor Abatoye?
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I'm sure with the ERP system, we're looking at something that's really robust and that can serve our community. My first question is, there's been a lot of push for regional collaboration, and I'm wondering, is there an opportunity here for intermunicipal collaboration for an ERP system? Is that something we've seen out there?
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. Through to the chair, to Councillor Abatoye. We have explored some lessons learned through our region. So we have met with various municipalities that are in different phases of the ERP. I don't know if it's truly possible to share an ERP system because so much of the city's data and functions are tied up in that system, and there has to be a good integration between that ERP system and our other components that need to function together. So I don't think that opportunity is out there, but the lessons learned and leveraging other municipalities' experience has been mission crucial to us. I will say that whenever we've reached out to any of our regional partners, they've been very willing to share information and examples, as well as best practices in terms of what worked or what didn't work for them. So that's been a positive experience.
Okay, all right, great answer. Thank you. My second question is actually to the IT director. I know there's going to be a lot of, emphasis on your department and the support that you're going to be providing to the organization as we do this transition? Because there's going to be a lot of, I'll say, issues, right? Because if you're bringing the new system, my question is your department ready for the change? Do you feel like you're well staffed for this type of process? Because it's going to be really big.
Through chair to Councillor Abatoy, as Ms. Paget was saying, the resource planning that we're going to be doing here shortly will tell the story for that. So currently, we're not staffed properly for supporting a new system like this. But as we go through our resource planning, that'll paint the picture.
Okay.
For sure.
All right. So it's a you'll know as you go on, right? And just my final question, if that's okay, can I ask one little question? So what kind of age are we looking for this software? What was the age of the previous one, and the new one? What is our expectation for that?
Through the chair to Councillor Abatoya. So the existing software that we've had in operation since early 2000s. So we're running close to 20 years plus. And your question was the age, or how long will the new system last? It's hard to say. I mean, technology changes, but we're looking probably most likely between the 15 to 20 year.
Okay.
Depending upon the vendor support, that is the real crucial.
Okay, fantastic.
Component.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Kelly?
Thank you. Nice to see everybody here on the same subject a year later. I still don't really understand what an ERP system does. So, as I would understand our current system, we would have upwards of 20 different software programs that we use within the city for various functions. I assume one for our financial reporting and bookkeeping, another one, say, Excel to track whatever data we have. Some form of communication software that tracks email addresses. So does ERP replace all of those or tie all of those together?
Through the chair to Councillor Kelly, I will start answering that question, but I may have to call a friend for some supplemental detail. So basically, an ERP software is scalable, so it has many modules. So for example, you will have a accounting, invoicing, work orders, budgeting, taxes, utilities, and then all your people services functions. So your payroll management, your benefits management. There are many, many functions that are part of a payroll system. So it is a pretty extensive software that addresses a lot of needs, even things like procurement. What we're doing right now is identifying what are the core functions that we need to replace when Microsoft GP Dynamic goes away. Anything that we are doing through Microsoft GP Dynamics, we have to replace. At the same time, we are not beholden to using only this system. There may be instances where we say, you know what, for procurement, we're going to use a different software because it works better for our needs. In that case, we need to be confident that that software can integrate into our ERP, whether that's like a native integration or it requires an additional piece of software to make them talk together so that we can pull that data to do financial forecasting and predictions and things of that nature. So that's my layman's definite understanding and explanation. And I'm looking to my friends if there was anything that they feel like I've missed.
Quite frankly, that's good enough explanation for myself as well. So what I think I heard you say is that this software will probably replace many or perform many of the computerized or electronic functions that we have within the city.
Correct.
But what I was interested in, and you all commented on that, we're not married to this particular software. We can attempt to go outside if, in fact, we deem it worthy.
Through the chair to Councillor Kelly, absolutely. That is one of the critical conversations we're having right now. I can give you an example. our water portal will cease to be supported after June of 2026. So one of the decision points is how do we negotiate that transition? Can we find software, a module in our ERP system? Do we make that a requirement? Is there a third-party software that can integrate with the ERP that would better service those needs? So those are exactly the kinds of conversations we're having. I think from the perspective of the governance committee, we are being very cautious that we don't tie our hands, and that we understand we will always need other software. We will not be able to get everything in one system. So it's finding a right balance between choosing the right system to meet as many of our needs as we can and still integrate with other systems where appropriate.
Perfect. Sandy, I noted your comment on your lessons learned discussions. I know you guys know this, but I would encourage you to do and use your peers as absolutely as much as possible. I have a good friend who's part of the senior management team of a company that employs around 1,400 people. They went through this change about 6 years ago, and it brought the company to their knees. And when I talked to him after the fact about it, his response was that they goofed up and they didn't properly allocate the resources necessary to get the job done. So it is a huge undertaking. I know nothing about it other than the horror stories. I did some research after I talked to him, and there's all kinds of stories that abound on the internet about organizations that have stumbled in this process. So I'm encouraged. I believe you folks know what you're doing. Lessons learned in proper budget and proper planning, and I think you're on top. I know you're on top of it, but don't commit yourself till you're absolutely certain.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments.
Blizzard.
I kind of had the same question, but I think I still need some more clarity on it because I don't quite understand it. So is this, I'm trying to wrap my head around what this is. Is this like if we were to buy Microsoft Office that has all the different parts, only we are buying a bigger package that has all the different things that the city needs? Is that kind of what it is? So either one of you, I guess.
Through to the chair, to Councillor Blizzard, yes, essentially, that is correct. It is software that has many different modules that perform different functions, but these are like about the core businesses. So our utilities billing, our property tax billing, project management, payroll, those are the modules that we're talking about, but it's very similar to like the Microsoft suite.
So when we get this, though, is it going to be so different that people are going to struggle with, like a spreadsheet is still a spreadsheet, or is this going to be, you got to relearn that, what the ball is, or what the wheel is, I guess?
One of the challenges we're facing is that right now some of our processes are very manual, and they are literally, we're managing something on a spreadsheet. So we're going to be upgrading to a more modern approach for some of our processes. For other processes, it's not going to be significantly different. It's just learning a new system. So if you had used back in the day WordPerfect, I'm aging myself, and then switched to Word, you just had to learn.
Okay.
It would be similar to that. So in some areas, the transition won't be as transformational. In other areas, it will be more transformational, which is a good thing, because we are at a maturity in terms of the size of the organization and the scope of our services where it is appropriate to make that transition.
Okay, so maybe when all is said and done, when we come out of the other end, everything should be more efficient. But, hopefully?
Yes, but perhaps not in the way that you're thinking. I would say in terms of efficiency, the goal is to free up our resources and redirect them to higher value work. We're not expecting that we're going to have created a lot of new efficiency because the new system will need the care and feeding and updating, and they are more frequently updated than traditional systems in the past. So we're entering a bit of a different ball game.
Okay, I think I got it now. A little better anyways. Thank you.
Councillor Abitoye.
Yeah, sorry, something piqued my interest here. Artificial intelligence, is that something we're going to see with this new system that we're going to be putting out for proposal? I guess that's a tribal question. Okay, well, sorry. Jeremy, go ahead.
Through the chair to Councillor Abitoye. So in our preliminary discussions and looking at some of this, what software that's out there, there is an implication for AI as to how it will be used in terms of an ERP. We're still at our infancy stage of understanding that. So can't really give you a direct answer on that right now.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I had occasion in my consulting career before I came here to work with a number of consultants that worked almost exclusively helping organizations address what Councillor Kelly talked about, the implementation of an ERP system without appropriate allocation of resources to deal with change. Because it ultimately comes down to how do people grasp the change in their jobs. I don't want to use this new spreadsheet, I'm going to use Excel. I don't want to use that. And so they work around it. So the question is, how do we grapple with that change initiative to make sure that we apply the right resources in the right way? And so I'm sure that it sounds like you've got a good plan, and with the right level of executive sponsorship, starting with the city manager and with yourself, Sandy, I think that ultimately will help to trickle down to ensure that as you implement this program suite, and that's what it is, it's a suite of applications to solve common problems. So I'm confident that you're moving in the right direction. So keep up the good work, and thank you very much for the presentation, and keep the good work. Thank you. We don't have any more questions, so the next item on the agenda is councillor inquiries. Do we have any inquiries for our administration? Looking around, I'm not seeing any inquiries. I think you're getting off easy today, Mr. Fleming. So with that said, I guess we have the opportunity. I would entertain a motion to move into closed session. Councillor Macon?
Thank you. I'll make the motion that we move to closed session for matters covered under FOIP.
Okay, please vote. And we are now moving into closed session. Thank you.